Look around for a moment. Look at the people beside you, behind you, across the room. Ask yourself, do they really care about every struggle that's churning inside your mind? Are they constantly thinking about your needs, your aspirations, your late night anxieties? Chances are they're not. Because the truth is, nobody cares about you as much as you'd like them to. That might hurt to hear. It might sting your pride or make you feel a little uneasy. But let me tell you something. That realization can be the most liberating, powerful wake-up call of your entire life. You see, when you stop believing that the world owes you its undivided attention, you suddenly discover that you're free to act, to push, to climb, to create, and to chase what matters to you without being chained to the opinions and expectations of everybody else. And that's the gift I want you to take away tonight. The freedom that comes with not being the center of everyone else's universe. Now, I'm not saying people are cruel or uncaring by nature. We all have our own battles, our own heartbreaks, our own triumphs. We're all wired to survive and to protect what's important to us. So yes, you might find encouragement here and there, a pat on the back, a few words of praise when you do something extraordinary, or even a hug when times are hard. But the day-to-day grind, the little steps you must take over and over again to become the person you want to be, that's on you. Nobody's losing sleep over whether you studied for that exam, applied for that job, finished that workout, or wrote that business plan. Nobody's out 24/7 thinking, how can I help him or her succeed? And why should they be? They've got their own mountains to climb. It's time to face the truth that if you want to build the life you've dreamed of, you must stop waiting for other people to hand you the golden ticket of motivation. You must learn to conjure motivation from the depths of your own soul. Because once you realize nobody else is going to shape your destiny, something remarkable happens. You reclaim your power. You pick up your potential. You do the work. You stop waiting for applause. And you start creating your own momentum. That's why we're here right now. To challenge everything you thought you knew about how success is found. To unsettle the complacency that's been keeping you still. And to remind you that the person in the mirror is the only one who can truly drive you forward. There's no cavalry charging to your rescue. There's no choir onlookers chanting your name around the clock. There's just you, your vision, and the grit it's going to take to make that vision a reality. So don't let that phrase, nobody cares about you, break your spirit. Let it set you free. Let it push you to be accountable. Let it spark a fire in your heart. Because if you don't value your time, your energy, your dreams, nobody else will. If you don't fight for them, no one else can. Tonight, I want to show you how to turn what feels like a lonely fact of life into the fuel that propels you toward achievements bigger than you ever imagined. The clock is ticking. Opportunity is knocking, and only you can answer it. Listen carefully. The moment you embrace that nobody cares about your personal struggles as much as you do, you stop seeking external validation and start building internal fortitude. You start saying, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. You stop wondering why people aren't applauding you, and you learn how to clap for yourself. You stop being paralyzed by the fear of rejection because guess what? And everyone else is busy worrying about their own rejections. This is the door I'm opening for you right now. Step through it, and you'll find a path where your sense of worth doesn't depend on any crowd's cheers. It depends on the relentless, unyielding faith you have in your own capacity to rise. But how do we get there? How do we walk that path when our human nature craves belonging and recognition? How do we push forward when the weight of isolation sometimes feels suffocating? Let's dive into that piece by piece. Because if you choose to see that the world's indifference can actually be your greatest source of freedom, you'll realize that nothing, absolutely nothing, can hold you back. First, let's confront a powerful truth. If nobody truly cares about you the way you think they should, then you have no more excuses. You have no scapegoat, nowhere to hide. That might feel like a punch in the gut. But it's also the best news you'll hear this year. Without the cushion of external support, your hunger to succeed has to come from within. You can't rely on the crowd to pick you up when you fall. You can't rely on the crowd to keep you awake at night, planning your next move. You can't rely on the crowd to sacrifice their comfort to ensure you break through your limitations. No, you have to do that. And guess what? That means you hold the keys. It means that every choice you make, every step you take is your responsibility. If you succeed, that credit lands on your shoulders. If you fail, so does that blame. But that's actually a gift because it means you get to steer this ship. You decide the direction, the speed, the destination, and the path. Now, let me tell you a story about a young man who grew up in a neighborhood that didn't have the slightest concern for him. He had dreams of playing professional basketball, but nobody around him cared. Nobody woke him up at 5 a.m. to practice. Nobody forced him to run those extra drills after everyone else left the gym. And every time he messed up a play, nobody rushed to reassure him he was still good enough. He felt alone, isolated. But instead of shrinking under that loneliness, he turned it into fuel. He trained harder, shot more hoops, studied the greats. He kept going day after day. Eventually, he got into a decent college program. He kept training with that same hunger, carried the chip on his shoulder, refused to wait for someone else to believe in him. Eventually, he made it into the pros, and defying every expectation set by a world that seemed indifferent. But in truth, it was that very indifference that drove him. It was the fact that nobody was clapping that made his inner voice so loud, so determined. If you keep waiting for someone to care enough, you'll miss your window. Time doesn't pause while you wait for external motivation. The world keeps spinning. Seasons change. And if you're standing still, your dreams slip right through your fingers. You've got to be the one who wakes up early to read that extra chapter or stays up late to refine that business plan. You have to push your own limits, not because someone told you to, but because you're determined to become someone you're proud of. Don't you see? That's the gift hidden in nobody cares. If it means you're now free from the shackles of living up to others' definitions of success. You define success on your own terms, and you either hustle until you reach it or let it slip away. So how do you do it? How do you recognize this freedom as an advantage? You start by looking inward. You ask yourself the tough questions. What do I really want? Why do I want it? Am I willing to do whatever it takes? Because the moment you answer these questions honestly, you have a blueprint for how to spend every hour of your day. You step away from the blame game. No more pointing fingers at your parents, your boss, your friends for not giving you the support you wanted. Instead, you say, it's on me. And that, my friends, is where true power lies. That's the spark that lights the fire of self-sufficiency. Let me give you another example. Think about an entrepreneur who wanted to launch a revolutionary app, but had zero connections and no cheerleaders. If people glanced over his pitches, scrolled past his posts, didn't show any interest. But he kept refining the product. He learned to code better, to market smarter, to pitch more convincingly. He wasn't waiting for a standing ovation. He was waiting for the right solution to present itself through sheer grit and experimentation. After countless failures and silence from potential investors, eventually he gained traction. The app caught on with a small test group, then a bigger audience, and before long, that indifferent world started to notice. But he learned the most crucial lesson of all. The real validation was the moment he decided, I'll do whatever it takes, with or without applause. This is how you transform nobody cares into your personal superpower. Recognize that you don't need an audience to be great. You just need conviction. You need resilience. You need a reason that lights you on fire from the inside. That's why I'm telling you, you must find the seed of your purpose and water it daily, even when no one's watching. Especially when no one's watching. Yes, it's a lonely path sometimes. Yes, you'll face days when you question every choice you've made. Yes, the temptation to blame the world for not caring enough can creep in like a thief in the night. But if you can resist the temptation, if you can push past the loneliness, you'll develop a backbone of steel. You'll realize that with or without the crowd, your vision remains. And you'll keep stepping forward, one foot in front of the other, until suddenly you look back and see how far you've come. That's growth. That's freedom. At this point, you might be thinking, okay, I get it. But how do I manage the weight of feeling like I'm on my own? You do it by building your own system of checks and balances. Make plans and set goals. Give yourself deadlines. When you hit a milestone, reward yourself. When you fall short, assess why, then get back up. This is how you ensure that your journey doesn't stall just because nobody is pushing you along. You become your own coach, your own motivator, your own biggest critic. You tap into your inner voice that says, you've got more in the tank, keep going. And here's the kicker. Once you internalize this mindset, once you live by it day after day, you might inspire people without even trying. It's ironic, isn't it? When you stop needing the world's applause, that's when the world starts leaning in to watch you succeed. But by the time they do, you've already built a resilience that doesn't depend on their praise. You move forward from a place of authentic drive. So let's pivot for a moment and talk about the emotional toll of carrying this knowledge that nobody's going to devote themselves to your dreams. It can feel hell unfair, but life isn't fair. Dreams aren't guaranteed. Potential means nothing if it's not harnessed. So let this knowledge sharpen you. Let it turn you into someone who stands tall despite the odds. Remind yourself, I can face loneliness. I can handle indifference. I can persevere because my vision is worth it. If you can say that and believe it, then you are unstoppable. You won't quit at the first sign of difficulty. And you certainly won't rely on someone else to keep your passion alive. In practical terms, channel that fire into daily routines. Study what you need to study. Practice what you need to practice. Network however you must network. Don't do it to prove something to others. Do it because you care enough about your own future. Do it because you see the bigger picture. Do it because you refuse to be overshadowed by the world's indifference. And let me tell you one more story. There was a teacher who discovered that half of his students came from homes where nobody cared if they did their homework or not. Those kids learned to rely on themselves for discipline. They found ways to solve math problems on their own or with peers who shared their hunger. They stayed after class, not because a parent told them to, but because they believed in their own potential. By the end of that year, those students outperformed many of their peers who had families constantly hovering. Why? Because they learned the value of self-motivation. They understood how to push themselves. And that is a lesson that will stick with them for the rest of their lives. So when you're sitting there thinking, this isn't fair, people should care more, realize that in some ways, you're being gifted the chance to shape yourself into someone who can stand tall against any wind. Don't waste that gift by wallowing in self-pity. Turn it into a furnace that forges your determination. As you move forward, connect this idea with every aspect of your life. Your relationships, your career, your personal growth, all of them hinge on your willingness to hold yourself accountable. Waiting for others to care more than you do is a losing game. Instead, start caring so fiercely about your own path that nobody's indifference can ever break you. Start caring so thoroughly that no silence from the people around you can slow your progress. Then watch what happens. Watch how your self-confidence grows. Watch how your results multiply. Watch how you start walking through life with a sense of direction that no amount of outside applause could ever give you. And that leads us here to the heart of it all. In a world that's so busy, so distracted, and often so indifferent, you have a choice. Will you let that reality cripple you, or will you let it set you free? Now is your moment to choose. Let's take a breath. Let's stand in that stillness for a moment. Let that reality sink in. Nobody truly cares about the details of your life like you do. And in this moment of clarity, decide that you will take ownership of your destiny. Decide that you will be the person who believes in you more than anyone else. Decide that you will harness your frustrations, your doubts, your hopes, and turn them into fuel. Because that's how legends are born. That's how breakthroughs happen. That's how dreams become real. Now, as we bring this all together, remember the lessons we've pulled from these stories. First, that no applause is sometimes the best thing that can happen to you, because it forces you to rely on your own spark. Second, that your willingness to do the work, day in and day out, cannot depend on whether people are paying attention. And third, that your resilience will grow only when tested against real adversity. When nobody is there to carry you through the fire but yourself. Think back to every time you hesitated because you thought someone else needed to push you forward. Think about every dream you shelved because you felt nobody believed in it but you. Let that regret turn into resolve. Look yourself in the mirror tonight and ask, am I ready to be my own greatest advocate? If the answer is yes, then make a commitment right here, right now. No more waiting for the world to care. No more searching for a perfect storm of circumstances. No more bemoaning that your support system isn't big enough. You are your support system. You are your best champion. You are the person who's going to get up tomorrow and fight for your vision. I want you to remember this as you face your next obstacle. You don't need a fan club to conquer the hurdle. You don't need an entourage. All you need is the understanding that if it matters to you, you'll find a way. You will show up. You will practice. You will study. You will sacrifice. Nobody else can do that for you. And that's not a burden. That's your greatest advantage. Because once you own the process, you also own the result. It's time to call upon that inner fire you've been stifling. It's time to decide that you're not going to fade into the background of your own life. It's time to embrace the truth. Nobody cares about you the way you might desperately wish. But that's okay. Actually, it's more than okay. It's brilliant. It's empowering. It's liberating. It hands you the reins of your life and says, steer. But let's wrap in a final surge of momentum. Hear me when I say this. You cannot rely on anyone else to deliver your destiny. Not your family, not your friends, not your mentors. They can guide you. They can cheer for you when the moment is right, but they can't walk your path. Only you can do that. The second you come to terms with that is the second you start living on your own terms. That's the second you stop begging for permission to be who you're meant to be. That's the second you rise to the occasion, because you realize that if you don't, nobody else will do it for you. Look at the great accomplishments of history. Behind every invention, every victory, every unprecedented success, there's someone who refused to wait for the world to care. There's someone who worked relentlessly in the shadows, fueled by a vision that only they could see. Beethoven, composing symphonies while losing his hearing. A visionary entrepreneur tinkering with code in a cramped garage. A single mother writing chapters of a book by hand, holding on to a dream that nobody else fully understood. They all pushed forward, not because the world cared, but because they did. And it was enough. So let it be enough for you, too. Let that unstoppable force be your dedication. Let it be your refusal to let the world's indifference define who you become. Turn off the noise. Tune into that inner voice that insists you are capable of so much more. Show up for yourself. Every morning, every night, and every moment in between. And when doubt creeps in, recall these words: nobody cares enough to do it for me. So I've got to do it myself. Do you feel that energy rising? That's the energy that changes lives. That's the energy that builds empires. That's the energy that transforms impossible into dome. Let that sink into your bones. Let it inspire your next step, your next leap. Because as of tonight, the excuses have no place to hide. The illusions that someone else will come along and solve your problems are gone. There's only you. And that, my friends, is the greatest freedom you'll ever know. I challenge you to leave here tonight with a fierce commitment to your dreams. To wake up tomorrow and say, it's on me to make this happen. Embrace the isolation as a crucible that molds your character. Welcome the challenge as the proving ground of your resolve. Then get to work. Stop checking over your shoulder to see who's applauding. Clap for yourself. Listen to your own heartbeat as it thunders in your chest. That's the sound of life, of possibility, of passion. And as you walk out of here, hold your head high. Feel the power in your spine. Commit to the future you want. Because when you do, nothing can stop you. Not indifference, not doubt, not fear. You become unstoppable, unshakable, undeniably alive. That's what happens when you stop waiting for the world to care. You blaze a trail that compels the world to care eventually. But by then, you won't even need it. You'll be running on a fuel that doesn't run dry. So go. Seize your destiny with both hands. Pour your heart into what matters most to you. You owe it to yourself to become everything you're capable of being, and you don't need the world's permission to do so. Own your life, own your future, own your power, because nobody cares about you in the way you want them to. But that's no reason to shrink, no reason to give up, no reason to settle for less than extraordinary. It's the very reason to go all in. Make your mark. Make it loud. Make it count. Now is your time. And believe me, that's all the reason you'll ever need.